The realization of a fool, the shortcut to enlightenment. This story is woven around events at a quiet temple in a distant land called Tamara. Here, 500 monks were diligently practicing, but among them was a unique monk named Makaro. He was slow to learn from birth and walked a different path than the other monks. This story focuses on Makaro's inner journey and the astonishing change he ultimately achieves. His story shows a journey of overcoming difficulties and setbacks to reach true enlightenment, and sheds light on the possibility of growth and change in our own lives. It also emphasizes how profoundly the Buddha's teachings can impact, and shows the importance of the human spiritual journey. Long ago, when the Buddha was at Jetavana Monastery in Sravasti, gathering many people by his virtuous power, and giving compassionate sermons, this story takes place. At that time, the Buddha's teachings reached even distant lands, and many were guided by the light of his wisdom. One of them was a temple quietly standing 7 li outside the castle in the country of Tamara. It was built in a quiet, peaceful place surrounded by trees, and 500 monks resided there permanently. They were busy from morning to night with sutra recitation and walking meditation, and the temple was known as a place of diligent practice. Among them was an old monk named Makaro. He was an aged monk with white hair and deep wrinkles, but because he was dull-witted from birth, he found it difficult to understand the profound teachings like the other monks. He never ceased to smile and was an amiable presence in the monastic community, but his slowness in learning was evident. The 500 fellow monks tried to help him, taking turns teaching him. But even after several years passed, he could not memorize even a single verse. As a result, his position within the monastic community became delicate, and the other monks gradually began to lose patience with him. Many, exasperated with his dullness, kept him away from serious study, and treated him merely as someone to do cleaning and chores. His status within the monastic community was low. He became an object of contempt, and he was always assigned cleaning duties.
This is fine. I am foolish after all. This is all I can do.
Makaro accepted the situation and silently carried out the tasks assigned to him without a single complaint. Even while cleaning, he heard the monks' sutra recitations and enjoyed chanting along with them in his heart every day.
I wish I could memorize this sutra. If I could understand the meaning of this sutra.
His heart was pure, harboring no ill will towards anyone. One day, the king of Tamara planned a large-scale almsgiving ceremony, and news reached the temple that he was inviting the monks of the country's temples. This almsgiving ceremony was to show the king's deep respect and faith in Buddhism. And it was planned that eminent monks from around the country would gather, and a Buddhist service and almsgiving would be held at the palace. The monks of the temple rejoiced at this news and began preparations. They saw it as an opportunity to demonstrate the fruits of their practice, and also a good chance to deepen their friendship with the king. However, amidst this joy, Makaro alone was troubled by his position, and his heart ached. He despaired that his dullness was not suitable for the king's assembly.
Why was I born so dull-witted? Even after years of practice, I still can't learn a single verse, and people look down on me and shame me. What's the point of living on from now? I can't find my reason for existence. Is there value in living?
He asked himself, agonizing in his heart. While the other monks of the monastic community were busy preparing for the alms-giving ceremony, he secretly slipped into the rear garden. His heart was heavy and filled with despair. He took out a rope, headed for a large tree, and under that tree he let out a deep sigh. He looked up at the tree, and thinking about the suffering of life and his despair for his own future, he resolved to hang himself. At that moment, he suddenly remembered the teachings he had learned so far, and the Buddha's compassionate words came to mind. However, he felt a deep gap between those teachings and his current situation, and was assailed by an even greater sense of despair. The moment he tied the rope to the tree and was about to take his own life, a sudden change occurred. At that time, in the far-off Jetavana monastery, the Buddha, with his profound enlightenment, perceived Makaro's anguish and despair with his all-seeing Dharma eye. From his compassionate heart, the Buddha resolved to take action to save this pitiful monk. Using his mysterious power, he transformed into a half-human tree spirit and appeared at the spot where Makaro was about to take his own life. Suddenly, in a loud voice,
"You great fool, what are you doing?"
The voice echoed through the rear garden, and Makaro stopped his hand in surprise and fear. He felt awe and curiosity towards the tree spirit that suddenly appeared before him and faced it with a tense expression. He confessed in detail to the tree spirit the hardships he had experienced so far. His voice trembled, and his words were imbued with despair and regret. The tree spirit listened intently to his story and admonished his thoughtlessness.
"Don't do such a foolish thing. You are now attempting to do the very thing you must not do."
The Buddha, transformed into a tree spirit, spoke kindly yet sternly, and he began to talk about Makaro's past lives.
The tree spirit told how he was once a Tripitaka monk in the time of Kashyapa Buddha, a highly intelligent being with 500 disciples. But his arrogance led him to despise the masses and neglect the teachings, which led to his present form.
The tree spirit's words resonated deeply in Makaro's heart. The tree spirit exhorted him to strive with a sense of self-reproach and taught the foolishness of self-harm.
Is this not the height of self-deprecation? There is no human being who has no value in living. Everyone has a reason to live. You just haven't found that reason yet. Live.
These words pierced Makaro's heart, and he deeply reflected on his actions. At that moment, his heart began to open little by little, and he began to see an understanding of his past sins and a path to self-reform. When the tree spirit finished teaching Makaro, he revealed the Buddha's majestic divine light with his mysterious power. His appearance radiated an overwhelming presence, and the surroundings were enveloped in his compassionate atmosphere. The Buddha stood before Makaro and recited a verse for him.
If you love yourself, be prudent and do not lose your guard. If you wish to attain liberation, study the truth and do not cease. First, make guarding yourself your top priority. Always strive to learn on your own. If you do not tire, you will gain wisdom and eventually benefit others well.
These words, filled with deep wisdom and compassion, continued. This verse resonated deeply in Makaro's heart, and he realized his own foolishness and understood the importance of changing. Seeing the Buddha appear before him and emit his radiance, he felt deep emotion and a sense of respect. He trembled, and overcome with emotion, he bowed at the Buddha's feet, expressing his gratitude for his benevolence. And he took to heart the meaning of the verse the Buddha had taught and resolved to deeply understand its teachings. With the Buddha's teachings in his heart, he entered meditation and immersed himself in deep contemplation. In the process, his mind gradually opened and his foolishness cleared. Suddenly, he was able to attain Arhat enlightenment, and in that moment, his mind completely transformed. He could see through the destiny of his past lives and became able to read the entirety of the Tripitaka in his mind. His mind was completely transformed, and with a new self-awareness, he accepted his past and solidified his determination to move towards the future. From this moment, Makaro was reborn not as a mere dull-witted monk, but as a wise man who had attained deep enlightenment. The Buddha showed Makaro a new path.
Makaro, quickly don your robes, take your bowl, and attend the almsgiving ceremony at the palace.
These words gave him new confidence and purpose. Makaro, whose mind had been opened and who had attained enlightenment through the Buddha's teachings, began preparations to head to the palace with a calmness and dignity he could never have imagined before. Determined to fulfill his new role, he arranged his robes and took his bowl with a resolute expression. Upon arriving at the palace, Makaro was instructed to sit in the highest seat among the 500 monks.
Makaro, your seat is over there.
This held an important meaning for the 500 disciples of the Buddha, and Makaro deeply understood that meaning. He walked quietly yet dignified and took the highest seat among the assembly. His demeanor was completely different from the former fool Makaro, and many people could not hide their surprise at his transformation.
What has gotten into that fool Makaro today?
They wondered in their hearts, but in front of the king, they could say nothing and remained silent. The king himself offered and served the meal, and afterwards Makaro began preaching for the king. His voice was clear and resonant, filled with reasonable words. His sermon was full of deep wisdom and insight, resonating in the hearts of those who heard it. The people in the assembly were ashamed of their ignorance by Makaro's words and felt a deep sense of repentance. They learned much from Makaro's teachings, and it became an opportunity to re-examine their own inner selves. Because of this, they were all able to attain Arhat enlightenment. Moreover, the king and his ministers were deeply impressed by Makaro's sermon and gained learning from his words. His preaching was profound, with nothing that could not be communicated by teaching or attained by understanding. They were moved by Makaro's pure and powerful words, and it is said they attained the enlightenment that lay followers attain. Makaro's transformation and growth had a great impact on the people around him, bringing new light to their hearts. This story offers the following important lessons to many people in modern society, especially those facing self-doubt, self-transformation, and self-realization. The first is the possibility of self-acceptance and self-transformation. The story's protagonist, Makaro, is deeply troubled by his own abilities at first, but ultimately undergoes a great change. This shows that change is possible through self-acceptance, no matter how difficult the situation. For modern people, this lesson suggests the importance of first accepting one's own limitations, while believing in the possibility of growing beyond them. The second is introspection and self-enlightenment. Makaro's process of attaining enlightenment symbolizes a journey of deep introspection and self-enlightenment. In modern society, we tend to be overwhelmed by external stimuli. But this story teaches us the importance of turning our gaze inward and exploring our true value and potential. The third is past actions and present results. The story depicts how past actions affect the present situation. This shows modern people the importance of being aware that one's actions produce long-term results and that past choices influence the present. The fourth is empathy and understanding for others. In the story, the other monk's initial reaction to Makaro was negative, but his change and growth had a positive impact on those around him as well. This shows that the power of empathy and understanding for others can bring positive change to those around us. The fifth is the courage to overcome self-doubt. Makaro suffers from self-doubt, but ultimately overcomes it and grows. Modern people also face self-doubt and anxiety at times, but this story gives us the courage to overcome those feelings and become a better version of ourselves. Never, under any circumstances, consider taking your own life. As in the above 5 points, this story deals with the universal themes of personal growth, inner change,